Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back and thank you for tuning into another math video here from MR Academy. And today we're going to continue on with our statistics and data set of videos. And we're going to talk about probability. Probability is a big piece of data and statistics. And it's an area of math where you can really jump in and do a lot of different things. But we're going to start with the basic stuff today, because that's what we're trying to understand, is just the basics, just the simplest stuff, just what is this whole thing boiled down, okay, as simple as we can make it. So, probability, as you can see right on here, is the chance, okay, which is another word for saying how likely or unlikely something is to happen, some type of event. Okay? It could be rolling dice, like that. It could be spinning a spinner, which, there we go, we will talk a little bit more about as we get into our practice problems. Or it could be flipping a coin. Okay? Many different ways, and there are so many other different ways too that you could work with probability. Many other different types of events, but that's what probability is. That is the simplest way right there. It's just how likely or unlikely something is to happen. And when we're talking about probability, there are four main ways that we can classify how likely or how probable something is to happen. Okay? And here are the four. In green, we've got certain, which if something is certain, it is either guaranteed or very, very, very close to guaranteed that something will happen. Yeah. If it is likely, there's a pretty good chance that that will happen. It's likely something will happen. Something is, really, really possible. Okay, there's a very, very good chance. Unlikely is just the opposite. There's a good chance that it will not happen. If something is unlikely, there's a good chance it's not going to occur. And if it's impossible, that's just the way it sounds. It means, no, it's not going to happen. It cannot happen. There's no possible way for that to happen. So, one way that we can look at it is this coin right here. We got a quarter. We got heads and we got tails. Okay? I can say that it is certain. It is a guarantee. If I flip this coin, one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to get a heads or I'm going to get a tails. It's either that or that. And obviously, I'm not going to factor in the coin landing on its edge. I mean, that's not going to, if that does, I'm just going to reflip it. There are only two things that can happen, heads or tails. Okay? I am certain that that's going to happen. Impossible is saying that, okay, if I flip this coin, it's going to land on some third outcome that's not heads or tails. That's not possible. There is only a head and a tails on this quarter. There's not a third side to a coin. And again, we're ignoring the edge. We're just looking at the heads and the tail side. Okay, so that would be impossible. So, let's talk about some of these down here. Let's kind of show you what I mean. Now, I'm going to also show you right here what we have with this spinner. Okay, I'm going to take this spinner, which many of you have probably used a spinner at some point in time. You just didn't realize that it was probability related. I got that little hand right there, and it's just going to spin. It's going to spin on this piece of plastic. You have probably played with one of these in any number of board games where you had numbers that it could land on, or you had a color it could land on, or some other kind of object that it would land on, and you had to move to that space, or you had to move that number of spaces, whatever it was. Candyland is a big one. Chutes and ladders, you spin to get numbers. A lot of games, a lot of board games you use spinners on. But what I'm going to do is I can look at this spinner right here. It's very, very little, but it still works. I'm going to put the middle of this spinner in the middle of this circle. Just like that. And then I'm going to get my big fingers out of the way, and I'll spin the spinner. And it landed on number 1 right there. Okay. I spin it again. Might land on number 1, might land on something else. In that case, landed on 4. Okay. So that's what the spinners are. And I will use that here and there as we're working on these. But what we want to do is we want to describe, using one of these words up here, the probability of landing on each one of these numbers in that circle. Okay? and we're going to use certain, likely, unlikely, or impossible. So first thing I want to do, just by looking at this circle right here, how many numbers are there? Or how many wedges are there is probably the most important thing to figure out. Starting with 3, we have 1 wedge, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different wedges. And I'm going to write that up here. We have 7 wedges. Okay, that number 7 is going to become very important later on when we start talking about other spinners. Not necessarily this one, but when we talk about some of the other spinners later. But we've got 7 wedges. Which numbers do we see in these wedges? We have a 4, a 4, a 4, and a 4. So we have 4 4s out of those 7 different wedges in this circle. 4 of them have a 4 in it. The other 3 have a 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so right off the bat, we see a number that's showing up a lot more than the others. That's going to tell us something. Let's look at our questions over here, see if we can figure that out. So number 1, we want to figure out the probability of landing on each number that they ask us about. Number 1, landing on a 4. Okay, so 4 of the 7 numbers are 4s. We figured that out by looking at our circle. So the probability of landing on a 4 is certain, likely, unlikely, or impossible. Well, is it close to guaranteed that we're going to land on a 4? Well, looking at our circle over here, there are still 3 other numbers that it could land on. So I wouldn't say that it's certain. And if we look at impossible, is it impossible we're going to land on a 4? Absolutely not. Because it looks like those 4s take up more than half of that circle. They take up a good chunk of that circle, so it's definitely not impossible. Even if there was only 1 4 in that entire circle, it still wouldn't be impossible because we still have a chance to land on a 4. So we have it down to likely or unlikely. Well, likely means that there's a very good chance that we're going to land on a 4. Unlikely means that there's not a very good chance we're going to land on a 4. We figured out, well, there are 4 out of those 7 wedges that have a 4 on them. That sounds to me like, yeah, there's a pretty good chance. It's not guaranteed. It's not close to guaranteed, but it is pretty likely that we're going to land on a 4 if we spin that spinner. So we're going to put likely on our line here. Then, move on to number 2, chances of landing on a 7. Well, there are no number 7s on that entire spinner. So if I spin this spinner right here over the top of that circle, is there any chance at all that I can land on a 7? No way. We cannot do it, which means it can only be impossible. If there is not a number 7 on that spinner, I can't spin it. I cannot spin a 7 or land on a 7. So it's impossible for me to land on a 7. Number 3, chances of landing on a 3. Well, one of those 7 wedges has the number 3 in it. That's that one right there. It was likely that we were going to land on a 4 because there were a lot of 4s, but there's only 1 3. So it sounds to me like, well, it's not impossible. It's certainly not certain. It doesn't even really seem likely that we're going to land on a 3, but it's not impossible. So I'm going to say it's unlikely to land on a 3. There's not a good chance, but it could happen. And then number 4, the chances of landing on a number. Well, all of these are numbers. So that tells me what? I'm guaranteed. If I spin that spinner, I'm going to land on a number no matter how I spin it. So absolutely, that one is definitely certain. We are guaranteed, not just basically guaranteed, we are guaranteed if we spin a spinner on that circle right there, we're going to land on a number. No way about it. And again, like the coin before, I'm not counting the lines. If we land on a line, we can just say, oh, well, we're just going to go to the next number, or we're going to respin. Okay, so lines do not count. So if I'm going to land on a wedge, every single one's got a number. It is certain that we will land on a number. So hopefully that's making sense so far. So once again, we're going to do the same thing on this side. Now once again, we've got our spinner here. We can put our spinner right in the middle of that circle. And I can spin it. And in that case, looks to me like we are closer to a 4 if I move it over just a little bit. We're going to call it a 4. Okay. We spin it again. Another 4. We spin it again. 3. Spin it again. 3. Okay. We could spin that all day. But number 1, 2, and 3 all have to do with that first spinner. Okay. The probability of landing on a 4. Certain, likely, unlikely, or impossible. Well, that was the first one we spun on. But it was on the borderline. I just said it was kind of closer to the 4. But to land on a 4, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wedges. How many of those 6 wedges have a 4 on them? Just that one lonely guy right down there. He has a 4 in him. The rest of them do not. So it's not certain. It's not a guarantee that we're going to land on a 4. Far from it. And we know it's not impossible because there is a 4. So it's not certain, it's not impossible. Likely would mean that there's a pretty good chance that we're going to land on a 4. Well, looking at all the possible things that we could land on, there's only one of those wedges that could land on a 4. To me, that tells me that it's possible, but it's unlikely. It's more likely we're going to land on something else. So it is unlikely we're going to land on a 4 in that spinner. Chances of landing on a 1, though. We look, and how many 1s do we have out of those 6 wedges? We got 1, 2, 3. 3 wedges have a 1 in them. That is half of the wedges. 3 out of the 6 wedges. So that tells me, well, it's not certain. It's certainly not impossible. And it's not really unlikely. In fact, compared to the other 3, there's 3 1s. There's only 1, 2, 1, 3, and 1, 4. That tells me it's pretty likely that we are going to land on a number 1. And then number 3, landing on a 5. Do we see a 5 on that spinner? Come on, worksheet, you can do better than this. There's no number 5 on there. Therefore, it is impossible. If the number that they're asking about is not even on the spinner, or not even on the dice, or not on the whatever, it's impossible. It cannot happen. It's not going to happen. Worksheet trying to trick us again. But they do that sometimes. All right, on to the next one. This time we do not have a spinner. Okay, we're looking at this bag of fruit, and to me that looks like we have 3 apples in that bag. Now, there are no other fruits. So, number 4, chances of picking an apple, it's a guarantee. You're not going to pick anything else but an apple out of there. That tells me, yeah, you're certain to pick an apple out of that bag of fruit. There are no bananas. There are no cherries. It is impossible to pick a banana or a cherry out of that bag. Cannot happen, will not happen. And then number 7, 8, and 9 all have to do with this spinner. How many wedges do we have to start with? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wedges. Okay, so 8 separate things that we could land on. Number 7, pick an odd number. If we were going to spin that spinner, do we see any odd numbers that we could possibly land on in that entire spinner? 2s, even. 4, even. 6, even. 8, even. I don't see a single odd number that we could possibly land on. Therefore, we're going to go back up here to the impossible. There are no odd numbers on that entire spinner, so that is not possible to land on an odd number. Number 8, pick a 2. We've got 2 2s out of the 8 wedges. I can't really say it's not impossible because there is a 2. I can't say that it's certain because It's not a guarantee. I mean, there's a lot of other things it could land on. And it's not even really likely, because we can't really say there's a really good chance that it's going to land on a 2. So I'm going to say that one is unlikely. But really, when we look at it, the 2's got as much of a chance to be spun as a 4, as a 6, or as an 8. So that would actually be an even chance. That's a fair game right there. That's a fair spinner. All of those wedges are the same size, and there's the same number of each number. So there's the same chance to land on a 2 as there is a 4, a 6, or an 8. But still, unlikely. Okay. Considering all the other stuff that it could land on, it's unlikely that it will land on a 2. And then number 9, pick an even number. Well, we talked about this already. There are no odd numbers, they're all even. So it is certain that we will land on an even number. All right. Well, hopefully that is making sense. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, more so than it did when you first started watching. But just remember, probability, that's just the chance of something happening. Okay, whether it's picking something out of a bag, or spinning a spinner, rolling dice, flipping a coin, whatever it happens to be, it's just the chance of something happening. So don't let that word scare you. Don't let all of these fancy things that we looked at today scare you. It's not as bad as what it looks. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you're feeling more confident about probability than you did before this video. What I would like you to do is, if you enjoyed this video, if you learned anything new, if this video helped you, please hit that like button, drop a comment, let me know, because I want to know if these videos are helping. If you have any other feedback you want to leave, please do leave that down below, because I want to know anything that can possibly help me make better videos in the future. Also, if you have any other video ideas for me, if you have questions about certain kinds of math, certain math topics, or science, or reading, or English, or whatever they happen to be, let me know, because I want to help you with any questions that you have. So leave video suggestions below as well in the comments. And if you want to be notified of future videos, do hit that subscribe button and ring that bell, and you will be notified whenever I upload something new in the future. This is going to be the last video for a little while that we're going to do in that data and statistics and graphs section of the channel. But we are going to jump into something that a lot of people are scared of in the next video. A lot of people are very terrified of the topic in the next video. It's perhaps one of the scariest things in all of math. We're going to cover that in the next video. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm going to keep you in suspense until the next video. But thank you for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, afternoon, evening, whenever you happen to be watching this. And until next time, hopefully you will tune in. But take care.